We should be ready to rock and roll. So, I see me over there.
Yep. There you are.
I am. There I am.
Little sounds there. Here, keep my audio.
Now we're just waiting on everybody else to show up. Aaron says hello. Hi, Aaron. Ruth says hello. Hi, Ruth. Scott says hello. Hi, Scott. Got 3 people right off the bat. It's always a good thing. Yay! Did everybody have a good full moon the last couple days? Yes, we are live. Rita says hello. Hi, Rita. Welcome, one and all. Ian says welcome and blessings. Aaron says, I have felt really weird the past few days. Could be the full moon. I often get very energized and have a hard time sleeping during the full moon. Although last night I tried something and it seemed to go alright. It didn't keep me awake. Rita says, full moon energy has been great. Yeah, I wore my kyanite and selenite crown and had my lunar stave with me in bed last night. I'm waiting to see what kind of dreams it generated in the next couple of days. Veronica says, hi everyone. Hi Veronica. Sheila says, hello from West Virginia. Sheila H., good to see you all. And Veronica says, happy full moon. Jono says, hi everyone. Hi Jono. So did you enjoy the fire? We're assuming you must have watched the video with the fire.
That was just little ones, yeah.
Grumpy Al says, hello, with a J. Jello.
Jello, okay.
Yeah. One of those typos, I think. J's and H's are right next to each other.
I don't know, I think Jello makes a good greeting myself.
Well, yeah.
Everybody just greet you that way. Jello.
Jello. Everybody go, woo, woo, woo. Grumpy Owl says, nope, I did that on purpose. Okay. It was not a typo. It was a greeting, Jello. Well, Ian likes it. Apparently. It tickles his fancy.
Yep, we're going to try to stay off food this time.
Well.
Do I have a fancy and where is it?
I was wondering the same thing, and so was everyone else. Darling Darlene says hello. Hi, darling. Yeah, I did sleep okay. I think about halfway through the night I took the crown off. But it didn't bother me when I was sleeping with it, so that was interesting. I haven't done that in a while. Jana says, of course I watched the fire video. Thank you for indulging us. It was a very good start. All right. You're welcome. I heard from the grapevine that you had. Eve says, Merry Meet. Hi, Eve. How are you this week? We're very windy right now. If you hear the sounds of whooshing sounds going by, it'll be the wind. The trees are all dancing out there, having a great time. Bunny had a funny reaction. There was a commercial for the Good Witch on, and it was the commercial with her with the kestrel, the little hawk, and it was making its hawk sound, and the bunny just went like this, and then jumped off my lap and hid. He says it's windy here in Jersey as well. Lots of moving air out there. Eve says, well. Violet says, hi guys. Hi, Violet.
Alrighty then.
Someone was asking me a question on the group. I just saw it a few minutes ago about paranormal investigators doing things like all the time online doing a YouTube channel sort of a thing, and I guess the last video she watched, it was kind of creepy. There were some weird noises or whatever going on, and I don't know. It's like really depends on what you're doing. If you're trying to generate spirit activity in the same place over and over again, I would imagine that the spirits involved would get frustrated. Grumpy Al says, yeah, that was me that asked. Okay. And Aaron says, here too in Idaho. It's also windy there. Yeah, and, I believe that the way you treat spirits should sort of go along the same way you would treat a person, as far as courtesy and boundaries and all that other stuff is concerned. So, I don't know. He says, there is a heart in a circle that hid the rest of my sentence, which is why I typed well again. Ah! It didn't come through here, so I got the well, but that's okay. Veronica says, I feel bad for the spirits in those places. People always say they'll help but don't want anything but content. Well, yeah. But in this case, apparently, according to Grumpy Owl, hi, Lul, this person does it on, live streams it from the same location, I think, is sort of the impression that I got 3 times a week. So you can let me know if that's accurate, since I just saw the thing just before we went live. Grumpy says he is very respectful. I was just wondering if cleansing every single time loses its effectiveness. I don't know. I don't know that cleansing loses its effectiveness. If you're opening and welcoming and then you dismiss and cleanse, that would be the same as having a circle and, calling in the elements and dismissing them. It doesn't matter how many times you do that. If you're doing it right, it should work the same each time. So it could be, if there's something going on, something else. Jono says, those curtains are a little close to the pillars. I get your concerns. The Akasha content was even better than the fire. Some concepts I had never considered before. Really good video. Awesome.
Well, thank you.
We're glad you enjoyed the content. And the Akasha is sort of a difficult concept to grasp. Definitely. So, yeah, and when I was channeling, I was doing it a couple times a week with different groups of people, so the energy was always being refreshed, I guess, as far as people with different kinds of questions and slightly different environment, but it didn't, decrease the connection I had over time. It just increased it, the continuing connecting to that plane in order to make that connection to be able to channel. So, I don't know. I think sometimes people misunderstand what's actually going on, and they interpret things in a different way than I might interpret them. And at this point, I think I've decided not to go and visit the guy that I talked about last time. Just so many red flags with that individual, and it's like, I don't know that A, it would be something I was able to do, and B, would it be safe for me to go? And I'm not about sacrificing my own sanity, life, and safety for someone else that I don't know at all. Family would be one thing, but
it's better to trust your instincts if circumstances allow you to.
Yeah, well, he said it was up to me, and I thought, okay, then the answer is no. He hasn't contacted me again. And he's looking for evidence, and that's not what we focus on when we do these things. We are looking to solve issues and get rid of problems and settle things down, not prove that it's there, because personally I know it's real, so I don't have to prove it for myself, and I don't care if anyone else believes me, so I don't have to prove it for them. So it makes it simpler. He says, I had a nice fire last night for the full moon and added some extra herbs. It scented the air and filled my soul.
Cool.
Nice. Grumpy Owl says, ah, okay. Yeah, his studio is in his home. He's been growled at once so far. It's not a popular show either. A small community of people that recognize each other in the chat. Yeah, I'm just not knowing exactly what he's doing and never having seen it. I don't have much else that I can offer except speculation at this point. But I wonder, I mean, my comment about if I was a spirit and was being asked to perform 3 times a week for an audience, I might be grumpy. The only thing that really came up for me, if he's going to different locations all the time, that'd be one thing, because then you'd be interacting with a different group of energy and stuff like that. So I don't know. And it doesn't sound like he's channeling in particular. Veronica says, do you have any tips to help tune into spirit? Recently I've been hearing frequency, and sometimes they'll turn into songs. However, I struggle to hold the state to hear it. Yeah, I have that happen to me too, and I try not to hold on to the state too tight because of that. Because when you try to tune in as if it's like happening in physical reality, it sort of stresses your ear's ability to channel the sound that isn't really there in physical form. So I just try to accept it as little bits. I was somewhere on Saturday, and I think it got started by some wind chimes that were outside where I was going. And it was quite a lovely tune. But I just sort of accept it and let it happen. And we'll see. We'll see if words and things like that start coming through. My granddaughter was able to hear the voice of several ghosts pretty clearly when I feel their emotions, so I can interpret what they're talking about through their feelings and respond appropriately. I was talking to my youngest sister the other day, and she was commenting on her gift. It runs in our family, there's no doubt about it. And when she has a premonition, or whatever you want to call it, it comes across her television set as a news break program with sometimes people she knows and sometimes people she doesn't. She's had 2 extreme cases of it, and she can't tell when that happens whether it's real, like happening now, or whether it's a foretelling of something later. The first one she told me about was an airplane crash off the coast of New England, and she was watching one of her favorite shows, and all of a sudden it stops, and breaking news about this airline crash, the name of the airline, the tail number, the number of people on board, when they lost communication with it, where they last had it on radar, and that they were out searching for it. And she was like, oh my God, what's going on? And then nothing. She kept waiting for a further report. Nothing else came. So she called the studio, the news station, and asked them when they were going to tell her more about this. And they're like, we don't know what you're talking about. There's no airplane crash. And then it happened the next night. And I thought, yeah, I'm betting they wish they still had your numbers so they could talk to you about it. Apparently it happened again during the German air show disaster. The day before that disaster, the same thing happened where she saw it on the news on her TV. And she had the name of the reporter, what the reporter was wearing, what they said, and everything. And again, she called the news station, and they told her she did not know what she was talking about, and she was crazy. And it happened the next day. So sometimes abilities can be extreme to the point where you can't tell the difference. So if you can tell the difference between something that's actually happening in reality, like don't walk across the street because there's a car coming, versus this is a premonition of somebody's going to walk across the street and get hit by a car or something like that, it's good. It's good to be able to tell the difference. So
I've had several precognitive dreams, no one particular one worth talking about, but I didn't recognize that they were precognitive dreams until it happened. I just thought it was like a regular dream, I couldn't tell the difference.
Yeah, I met a woman in Texas who had visual visual and auditory events that if there wasn't someone else in the room with her when she had them, she couldn't tell if they were happening or if they were a vision. And she got herself in trouble because one night she was awoken from her sleep by the sound of sirens. So she got up and went to the window and saw a fire at a warehouse. She had a set of binoculars. She watched it for a while. She tried to wake up her husband and was unable to rouse him, so she couldn't confirm it. And the next day, she called the fire department. And they told her there'd been no fires. She was probably just seeing the dump fire and was confused. And she's like, that's in a different direction. Described the number of vehicles that were there and all this other stuff. And then it happened that night. And it was a small community. And they remembered who she was. And she basically was run out of town because they were afraid of her after that, which I thought was a shame. I thought, hey, this is a good thing, right? Seems like it would be a good thing. But anyway, so Veronica adds, okay, that makes a lot of sense. When I try and concentrate, my ears snap back to physical sound, if that makes sense. Yeah, makes perfect sense. Jono says, have you guys heard about tinnitus being angel communication? The show Supernatural made it mainstream, but I think sometimes it might be true. There's a different kind of sound that I hear that is similar to tinnitus, but it isn't. It's different, and yes, it is. It does seem to be tuning into a different frequency when it happens to me like that. It tells me that there's some energies that are nearby, kind of thing. It makes me alert.
I don't get that, though. I have some tinnitus, but mostly a communication with me comes out as usually imagery that portrays words. No, I can't explain, but
Instead of tinnitus.
yeah, I don't get that for communications. I just have it sometimes.
Right. And I think there's a difference between the medical condition that's caused by the blood vessels being too close to a part of the eardrum and making that sound, which can be incredibly annoying for a lot of people, and what we're talking about here. So I think because they're both like a ringing in your ears kind of thing, that people sort of mush it all together, but I think they're two separate things.
Well, I think there's multiple separate things because I get an energy that comes up ever since our guru gave us Shaktapad in Portland there. I've had something like a bubbly energy that comes up and gives me some tinnitus and increases it sometimes. I don't know how else to describe it as.
It's like champagne bubbles or
Yeah, that kind of thing. Kind of like popping in my head.
poppy bubbles.
Yeah, like tinnitus type of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure that there's a lot of different things, and that's part of the trick, right? Trying to figure out what it is.
Yeah.
So Mary says, hi everyone, happy full moon expansion, everyone. Hi Mary. Veronica says, I've also heard the word think, clear as day, during meditation. Still not sure what it meant. Maybe it means think. Julia says, hello everyone, and Jono, I have that, but it's how a preternatural being communicates. If it's how, I give them an F. Grumpy Al says, oh, thank you for the answering. It's channeling. Its channel's called Paranormal Portal, if you're curious. Well, I might check them out and see what's going on. Eve says, I recently learned that the birds sing at the time right before sunrise is because the frequency created by their sounds open up the stamen of plants. Huh. Cool. Sundrop says, hi. Hi, Sundrop. Eve says, there's your spirit. Jono says, Julia, careful, they're listening. Eve says, hi, Sundrop. Julia says, chuckles, good. Then they can start making sense and I'll be able to talk and understand what the F they're saying. I was thinking about that when I was younger. I would hear my name being called as clear as a bell, and I'd be turning around and looking around and there'd be no one there, which I think is a very common experience for people that are developing psychic abilities, to hear their name being called. It is kind of annoying though, because nothing else ever followed. Rita says, me too, Ian. So wild when the dream plays out in reality. Still getting used to it. Jono's grinning. Vanessa V says, hello everyone. Hi Vanessa. Eve says, there is definitely a difference between the sounds. I have the clairaudience. It is not a trick. It is to be discerned. Yes, I'm sure all those things, once you have them, you know what it is that people are talking about. And Veronica says, laugh out loud, yes, just not sure what I'm supposed to think about. Yes, thinking about thinking.
I sometimes get random stuff and like, well, what the heck am I supposed to do with that? You know, something like, okay, you know.
Well, sometimes they give you random pieces of information that are totally useless and just seem like random junk you pick up on. And you go like, so I now know the name of some ancient device that was used in prehistory, but I don't want one. So, okay. Eve says, hi, Julia. Mo LaFay says, hi. Eve says, hey there, Mo. Apparently they know each other. Hi, Mo. Sarless Wolf says, hello. I've recently subscribed and your wisdom has helped me a lot. Well, welcome, and thank you for coming to our live chat. It's always good to meet new people. Sundrop says, hi, Eve, or whoever said hi to me. Eve says, hi, Vanessa. Julia says, hey, Eve. Jono says, what you're saying is interesting, Ian. I believe, let me go back up there. We interpreted the same spirit sounds pictures differently. It's the same as, is the color I see the same as the color you see? I doubt it.
Oh yeah, I've no doubt you're right. Things interpret themselves through us.
Our filters.
So it's,
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely filtered through us. Any channeling or anything like that, you have to try to be careful with, I guess. I'm not a channel, so I can't say that, but I've seen people that have had genuine channelings, or seemed to me to be genuine channelings, that got molded into something else by their filter. Usually the one I'm thinking of in particular was a Christianity filter.
Yeah. There's actually a fair number of those filters out there. They're pretty common.
I'm convinced she was really in touch with somebody, but couldn't interpret in any other way.
So Eve says, hi, Sarless. Vanessa V says, yes, when I was little, I would hear somebody calling my name when there was no one else in the house. And one time my dog heard it because she was scared and scratching at doors. Sarless says, anyone got tips on how to develop unlocked psychic abilities? I'm having trouble. Well, we have a number of videos on the subject of awakening your psychic abilities, defining them, and so forth. But the most important thing to do is to learn how to ground and center and set your own boundaries and be in control of what's going on and try to balance your own energy so that when you do develop abilities, they're in control and you're not being controlled by them. Some people can have some extreme ability experiences that will overwhelm their life, and that's not necessarily a good place to be. It may look good in the movies, but in real life, not so much. But staying open, paying attention to all the things around you. I think there's a lot of people that might have experiences with like nature spirits or fae or other beings and stuff like that, but they've trained themselves to ignore the input. They look over at a flower and they see a flash of something, and then it's like, no, that's not really there, so that was just a trick of the light or that kind of thing. So
yeah, developing your awareness is real important. Just
and keeping a neutral, open mind. Try not to. A lot of times we get in our own way by thinking the experience has to be in a certain way. It's like we imagine what it's going to be like if we have this ability, and a lot of times it's different. Everyone's is a little bit different. Like I now see things like visually with my eyes open, but that's new. Generally speaking, I see them in my mind's eye. I don't see them, in physical reality so much. So letting go of those self-defining limits that we put on an experience. Because once we define an experience as a certain kind of thing, that this is what it has to be in order for us to acknowledge it, if it's more subtle than that or completely different than that, then we can lose the thread completely and not notice it.
Yeah, there's not a good, simple example I can think of how to develop psychic abilities. I mean, there's lots of practices and exercises, but in general, I think it's that being aware that's the most important thing.
So Mary says, funny, because aren't you not supposed to think while you're meditating? Maybe they're messing with you. Sarla says, hi, Eve. Mango says, so I'm also a new subscriber. Welcome. I always have premonitions of death that come true. What does it mean? Well, that means that that's one of your abilities to foresee someone leaving this plane and going to another one. It probably doesn't mean that you're supposed to be preventing them all, and it's probably not fun to have as a gift, because it's never particularly fun to know that somebody is going to pass and then be left with, do I tell them? I know I had that happen when I had a really strong premonition when I was a teenager, and I actually saw a car crash and 4 people in the vehicle and heard the whole thing happen, and I was riddled with angst, I guess, having an existential crisis, because I think I was maybe 16, somewhere around there, wondering why me, why did I know this, and there's no good answer to that question. It just sometimes happens, and sometimes there's things you can do and sometimes there isn't. So I'm sorry that is a hard thing to deal with, I imagine. Jill says, I struggle with my empathic abilities. That is definitely not uncommon with empaths. That's one of the reasons why we talk a lot about boundaries, having emotional boundaries, physical boundaries, psychic boundaries, and being able to control empathic abilities, because if you are used to just sort of becoming what everyone else is feeling, then your own identity gets kind of lost in the process. Sort of like when my kids finally left home, and they weren't around anymore, and then I'm like, oh, let's see, I want to go get some food to eat. What should I get? And then I'm thinking, well, I don't want that because my daughter doesn't like that. And then I'm like, but my daughter's not here anymore, so it doesn't matter if she likes it or not. But do I like it? I don't know. And I have to sort of find out, who I am without the input of other people. It's sort of a similar kind of thing when it comes to feelings. And the better able you are to identify your own feelings, the easier it becomes to identify when someone else's feelings are coming in. And so that gives you a measure of control over what's going on. I have a bunch of videos in psychic abilities and psychic self-defense, actually, that can help you develop those boundaries and things. Jono says, Sarless, hug a tree, my friend. I'm not even joking or being facetious. Really, hug a tree. Siofra got me to do that about 2 years ago, and it started something amazing, even though I sound crazy. I don't think you sound crazy.
Yeah, crazy is relative and depends on who you're talking to. Of course, there is some just plain crazy, but...
Well, yeah.
But not...
Carol Lee says, it's hard to not think while meditation's any easier ways to stop the mind chatter. Well, there's different approaches that you can take to that. One, you can decide it doesn't matter what the background noise is, and you can just notice it and then refocus your attention on what you're trying to focus on and let it go, and don't berate yourself with it.
Dismiss it as unimportant and don't,
because if you focus on it, oh my God, I had a thought, that's it, I've ruined my entire meditation, I might as well quit now. Why bother? It's sort of not a good thing.
A couple of things to that, though. One is not all meditations are just passive and without thoughts. A lot of them are what I would consider active meditations when you're focusing on a substance, or on not a substance, you're focusing on a subject, or going through a series of images and sounds and things. There's a lot of ritual type things you can do in a meditational state. So you imagine different pictures and things passing by. Another thing is, though, that look towards some of the beginning yogic practices for quieting the mind, and they have a lot of good ones, such as just sitting and focusing on your breathing, and breathing in and breathing out. Let your mind focus on that. And then eventually you can get to a counting thing if you want to, where you count this many breaths, or you count this many seconds and breathe in, and you count this many seconds when you breathe out, and go from there. And it starts with just focusing on the mind, or on the breath.
And it actually can be interesting, because I was thinking about this just the other day. I was practicing prana breathing in my yoga practice, and focusing on the idea that the breath coming in is full of this life force. It's not just oxygen or air. It's got all this energy and stuff, and filling your lungs and coming out. And the first, I don't know how long I was doing it for as a practice, it was just air coming in. I didn't feel the energetic thing until one day, and then all of a sudden I breathed in and I felt the other part. I felt the actual prana. And I was very excited. It was funny. And I was like, well, they say it's everywhere. Is that true? So I ran around my house and I breathed in every room in my house to confirm that indeed it was everywhere, and it didn't matter where I was. But it can be amazing when something starts to work. Just because you're not getting a result right away doesn't mean that you're not actually building the muscles that you need and the attention and focus that you need to be able to allow that to happen.
It's just like exercising your body, exercising your mind and your emotions and things, and doing the meditations. You can give yourself a headache, you can overdo it, make yourself sore, have to quit meditating for a couple of days. I do that every so often.
Yeah, he meditates himself into a headache.
Yeah.
Fairly regularly.
And that's because I'm overdoing it, so that's why having a good time limit set, do it that time limit, and then you can gradually increase the time limit.
So Grumpy Al says, I've had something say my name on 2 separate occasions using my sister's voice. It was only a few inches away from my ear both times. I was a teenager when that happened. That would be kind of startling. I'm going to skip Eve and come back to her. And Grumpy continues, first time I was alone in an aisle at Walmart of all places. No one was in the aisle with me. The store wasn't busy. Second time I was in my room changing cassette tape. Surprise! Eve says, I'm preparing food for tiny humans now, so I won't be talking as much. However, I am listening. Well, we're always happy to have an extra pair of ears. Veronica says, I've recently gained this new ability to see through my eyelids right before I fall asleep. Oh, that's so much fun. And I only see in black and white. It feels like my eyes are wide open. Once I notice it, I snap out of it. Yeah,
yep.
We understand that one.
Yep.
Yeah, it can be very annoying.
We both have that happen.
So Tammy has just joined us. Thank you, Tammy, for becoming a member. Veronica says, not sure what to make of it or if it's anything at all. Well, what you're doing is you're developing your ability to see through your astral eyes, because that's what that is. Being able to see through your eyelids is using your astral body to see the room beyond your body. And it can be very annoying. And we have a light a lot of times. It's a light. It's like it's brighter than the room should be. And I don't know how many times I've poked myself in the eye to see if my eyelids are really closed or not, because I can't believe that they're not open because I can see the room. And Ian and I one day were talking about it and realized we both had that happen, and we wondered, is this just normal? Maybe everybody sees this light and they're never really dark. And then they turned off the light and everything went pitch black, and we went like, oh, there was a light, and then they turned it back on.
Actually, I think that affect myself, I speculate, I don't know, but I speculate that is due to the kundalini and the amount you've got coming up your spine at the moment. Makes it brighter or darker, whichever. But I also found that if I worked on it, I could close my astral eyelids sometimes.
Yeah, I can.
And actually make it go away so I'm not seeing through my eyelids anymore.
Yeah, every so often it's like, really guys, I just need to sleep. It's like, we're turning that off. And it is fascinating. And that is where I'm seeing the times that some of the Fae have come and different spirit beings have come to visit me when I'm going to bed at night and my eyes are closed. They'll appear to me in that vision through the eyelids and just be there in my room, and I can see them very vividly. And we're talking like with the gnomes and stuff, the wrinkled crags and things that they have in their faces and their hair and stuff like that. It's like the most detailed drawing you've ever seen. And so it is sort of the beginning of that ability, I think, just having that happen. So Lou says, I hug trees and don't care who's watching. Carolee says, okay, I'll try it. Mo says, I've been becoming more aware of the Fae lately. Do I have to leave offerings for the Fae on a daily basis if I want to work with them, or does it not matter? I don't want to make them mad. You don't really need to. I don't think you can make them mad. You can make them interested, entertained, frustrated, but I don't think they ever really get mad at us.
Unless you're trying to do something obnoxious,
right?
They might.
Right. I mean, if you're going out there and chopping down their favorite tree and not saying anything about it, they might get a little bit offended. But no, you don't have to. You don't have to give them daily offerings. You can just make a little space in a garden, like a little statue, some sparkly things to kind of honor them. Periodically, you can even have like a water, not a water fountain, but like a bird bath kind of thing that you dedicate to them and keep it filled with water for the birds, the local birds to enjoy. Yeah, and do something like that to help with it. And we work with them, but they don't work for us and we don't work for them. It's kind of a cooperative relationship that comes and goes depending on what they're up to and whether they have time for us or not, I think.
Yeah, there are religions, some religions such as Buddhism, that have that where they have to be fed on a certain schedule. I think it's usually once a week, but I don't know for sure. But then that's because they're very specific beings. They have specific requirements and they were made for a specific purpose and specific attributes. So
and you're feeding their house so that they can have enough energy to continue.
Right, to continue working.
Basically, you're giving them energy to continue, but the Fae exist without us.
But I've heard that those deities can get mad if they aren't fed and such, but I don't have any stories or anything relating to that. I don't really know too much about it.
So Luna says, hi Siofra and Ian, how are you doing? Doing pretty well. Although the rabbit, unfortunately, is still having some issues with his bowels, and I had to change my clothes before we started. It was annoying. But he is eating actual rabbit food now, so we're hoping it'll continue to go in the right direction and his bowels will catch up. Eve says, I had a dream of hugging trees a few nights ago, and I learned if you can't tell someone something, I can always tell a tree, and I will get an answer. They're actually quite chatty. Yeah, you don't get as many answers from rocks, big stones and things, because they don't pay as much attention to us, because they're thought, here's an idea I just thought of, I didn't just think of, but thought of sharing. If you're trying to quiet your mind and you're having difficulty doing it, try to be empathic with a large stone. We're talking like a big boulder. Tune in to the energy of that boulder, and that'll quiet your mind down. It works for me anyway, because their thoughts are very far apart, and it makes it nice. And yes, I've had trees tell me things when I've needed to know something in an area. I can touch a tree and say what's going on up there. I don't want to walk into a situation without any prior knowledge, and they'll let me know what's happening. And the trees share information around the planet. I felt the earthquake in, I think, Afghanistan in the late 70s or early 80s when I lived up in the Kispioks. And it was the trees that were giving me more information about that. That was a bad one. A lot of people died at the same time. So Jono says, hi Luna, heart, heart, heart. Julia says, at Veronica, just a thought, but it sounds to me like you are starting to astral project and you catch yourself. Luna says at Jono, hi baby. Jill says, heart, heart. Carolee says, oh wow, prana breathing. I'll look it up, thank you. You're welcome. Oh wow. Vanessa V says, when I would hear my name being called, it was with my mom's voice. I always answered on impulse before remembering there was nobody else there. Could it have been something imitating her voice? It's always possible. It could be that it was using a voice that you would be the most comfortable with and, feel at ease with, kind of thing. But it could also have been your mom. Possibly. If she was on the other side, I don't know. Or thinking at you really hard. I think sometimes telepathy can be sort of vocal. And Veronica Decker says, Julia, okay, that makes sense actually. I've been trying to learn how to astral project for a while. Sumdrop says, I used to hear someone calling my name at night, not anymore. Could that be a third eye opening? Well, with hearing, it's usually clairaudience. Visions is clairvoyance, which is the third eye.
Yeah, clairaudience is more associated with usually either the heart chakra or maybe the throat chakra, both.
And I have a video on the clairs, defining what they are and going through them. So you have some definition of them. I mean, if we're using language to try and communicate with each other, it's always good to be on the same page as far as, what I'm using to define the word, what it means to me when I'm talking to you and so forth. Makes communication easier. Luna says, I can't feel universal light energy coming down into me. Been like this for a very long time, although I can feel earth energy coming up through my feet. Could this be due to blockage? Something that's just not allowing you to sense it because it's there all the time. And certainly doing the tree meditation can help with that, visualizing it, and get through whatever it is that's keeping you from sensing it. Sundrop says, not the calling of names, the third eye.
Yeah, the third eye in the Kundalini stuff relates to hearing what they term as the guru, which is an aspect of your higher self coming through. It comes out as it looks like a flame without a candle or anything, like a candle flame, but non-flickering and steady, and will communicate to you in that fashion, but I don't think it doesn't come through audibly as such in most cases with the third eye stuff, and then you get just the plain clairvoyant vision and that also.
Well, in some of my premonitions, I get all the senses. Like with the car accident, I heard the sound of the crash. I felt the energy of the people that were there, and everything else. So it's not always a simplified thing. Like it's going to be one or the other. Sometimes it involves a lot of them. Luna says, I get the seeing through the eyelids thing too. Makes it difficult to sleep sometimes. It does. Like, stop entertaining me. Tammy says, hi. Hi, Tammy. Jono says, Veronica. Barton says, learn how to turn that off at will. Otherwise, like Siofra and Ian, your eyelids might become less useful. Sundrop says, Siofra, is your third eye opened? Yeah, actually, I was thinking about this because someone asked a couple of weeks ago about it, and I realized that when I was born with a thing right on my third eye. I had a birthmark that was there, and it was visible to other people for several years before it finally faded. So with all the experiences I've had, I'm pretty sure I came in with my third eye open. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been having visions and seeing angels and spirits constantly when I was little and everything else. So yeah, I'd say it's open. It varies how good it is, and how much I want to see or don't want to see and so forth. But it's there. Eve says, I always see things through my eyelids. And actually, I think they did a science test once where they got blind kids to be able to see numbers on a bill, like a dollar bill kind of thing, and read numbers through their eyelids, even though they couldn't see. And other kids just through their eyelids. So I think that it's a real thing. Luna says, I'm listening, but still putting amethysts away after yesterday, trying to figure out where they live, but can't remember now. I'm sure that wherever you put them, they will be happy. Lou saw a dream about a friend who passed on 8 years ago. She was all happy and smiling and hugged me tightly. I started crying on her shoulder and woke up saturated in tears. Don't know why now. Sounds like you had a visitation and she was there to comfort you. And that happens. Not everybody has that happen, but it does happen. He says, I have learned to follow the images and see the messages they are sending through the colored light. Cool. Veronica says, Lou, it sounds like she possibly could have visited you through a dream to let you know she's okay, or maybe it was closer you needed. Moonradish says, hello. Hi, Moonradish. Eve says, Veronica, I digress. Allow your closed eyes to keep in view the picture story you are being shown through this lens. When I do, I enter my dream state lucid, and I do catch myself every time, and my will has become more strong. Jono says, Siofra, excellent point about working with the Fae, not for them. Same as with gods, there is a difference between praise and worship and submission. Valid video idea for newer witches? Yeah, I might need to do another one of those and talk about it. I think I've done a few, but people lose track, so. Eve says, I agree with Siofra about your mom thing. Sundrop says, what I'm trying to ask is, seeing these beings like Fae, etc., means your third eye is opening? Yes. Being able to see into the spirit world is an action of the third eye, I would say.
Yeah.
Lewell says, imagine if a non-believing, skeptical psychologist was listening to us now. Well, actually, I've been to psychologists, and I tell them all this stuff, and they don't say anything negative about it, because I know the difference between reality and the other stuff I see. As long as you're grounded, they have nothing they can do. Sundrop says, some people think we are crazy and hallucinate these things. Yes, they do. But that doesn't mean that they're not real. Just because we see things that other people don't, doesn't mean that they don't exist. Because, most people don't see air, but it's there all the time. So there. And, it's, like I said, as long as you know the difference between a vision, a non-corporeal being, realize you have free will and you don't have to do anything they say. It's not like they're in charge of you. You don't have to listen to a voice in your head telling you to kill people like, some of the crazy serial killers that are out there. As long as you can function in society and in the world and deal with people and still have those experiences, then you're doing pretty well, I think. You just don't have to tell everyone about them. Unless you're me, in which case you can't keep your mouth shut. But, that's my problem. Luna says, I was having a nightmare the other morning and started waking myself up when I heard a non-human, possibly Fae voice, calling Mammy, Mammy in my ear. Definitely not my kids, as they call me Mum. Just trying to help you wake up, maybe? Eve says, I thought I had astigmatism. Went to the eye doctor. She said, your eyes are very healthy. You don't need glasses. So I decided to stop telling the doctor about the things I see that aren't there. Yeah. I mean, really, what's the point? It's sort of like when Luna went to the doctor to tell her about her Kundalini things that were going on that she didn't know were Kundalini at the time. And the doctor was like, I don't know what the heck you're talking about. Yeah, it's one of those things. Certain information is not helpful for them, and they are trying to fit everything you say into a certain model of physicality and disease and whatever. And if it's outside of that, it's just not helpful either to you or to them. They might want to send you to a psychiatrist to see if there's something wrong with your brain. Or maybe you have a tumor. I don't know. Jono says, Lulu, I am so grateful for this oasis of safety from Muggle judgment. Yeah, but we try not to use derogatory terms about people that are normal, so Muggle is considered a derogatory term by me, just so you know. I don't want to encourage a us versus them kind of mentality. It's just that they're not ready to experience those things as yet, and it worries them and makes them afraid sometimes because they're not sure what's going on, but it's not like they're less. It's just they're not in the right space. So
I agree. Yeah.
yeah. And I was very annoyed with that in the whole Harry Potter series because of that. And I heard pagans using that term on a regular basis to describe the normal people that were out there. Babylon 5 did a similar thing with some of their stuff. And, it's like we have to monitor ourselves and watch for that kind of sliding into a us versus them kind of mentality as much as we can. So, let's see, where am I? Eve laughs. Luna says, got the feeling whoever was calling was trying to do me a favor by waking me up. Yeah, maybe so. Veronica says, couldn't it be possible the people who are crazy have psychic ability, but they aren't in the right place to be able to handle them?
I'm
Some
sure
of
that's
them,
the case in some
cases.
Yeah.
But you have to remember that the spirit has to interact with the physical body that they're inhabiting, and sometimes that physical body is got something wrong with it that doesn't allow them to interpret normal things the right way. And so I'm completely in favor of medication or whatever it is that a person needs to be able to function in the reality that they find themselves in. So I would, yeah.
Sometimes it can be an imbalance too. Like there's some genuine schizophrenics that actually have psychic abilities, which makes things more confused. And then, what else was I going to say there?
You're asking me. Now I have to jump inside your head and figure that out. But yeah, the imbalances, the chemistry.
The imbalances and elemental imbalances, if you get unbalanced elementally, your health will suffer, but you may get an elemental attribute if you're have way too much water in your system. You're likely to be way too clairvoyant, so it'll cause you a problem. So that if you get more balanced, your clairvoyance will diminish. But that just means you need to get clairvoyance the proper way, not by an imbalance. But an imbalance of elements can cause it. An imbalance of fire element, way too much fire element, will do visual things like that.
Yeah, so what we're saying is it's not a simple thing.
Yeah.
Just because somebody is seeing things that other people can't see and hallucinating doesn't mean that they don't have either psychic abilities or some kind of chemical imbalance and something that's not, their brain's not processing information the same way as other people are. And so it's not a straightforward thing. We want to avoid thinking that it is, because yeah.
And some people just have strange hallucinations. I was watching a thing on TV about a child, and she was, I don't know, like 7 or 8, but she was having like these things, like numbers were hiding under her couch and waiting to attack her and things like that.
Wasn't she supposedly diagnosed as one of the youngest schizophrenics ever?
Yes.
Yeah.
But she did have hallucinations that were clearly not related to anything in reality.
As someone who has had hallucinations, I would just like to put out there that they seem real when they're happening, and anyone who says, oh, they're just hallucinations is completely nuts, and they don't know what they're talking about, because it becomes a part of your reality, and you have to figure out how to navigate it. So if you can take something that makes them dampen down and go away so you have a chance to like develop, I don't know, skill sets or whatever, I think it's a good thing. With me, I didn't get anything. I had to figure that out on my own. But it's not easy. So it's complicated. Grumpy Al says, it was startling. I did learn what it was years later. It's embarrassing to talk about because I was a dumb teen back then. But others may have different thoughts what it was. My doctor didn't disbelieve me. He actually said something shocking as a joke. Well, people do that sometimes when they don't know what's going on. Cover it with humor, bad humor. Eve says, yeah, our brains are more open than most on this channel. Yeah, that's true. Luna says, I also went to the doctor to discuss the tiny colored dots and steam-like stuff I kept seeing. Thought maybe it was something sinister like a tumor. Doctor thought I was crazy again. I'm so sorry, Luna. But at least you know that other people have it happen and they're not dysfunctional. So there's hope. Moonradish says, any tips on when getting clairaudient messages when you ask who the message is from but never get an answer? View it with suspicion.
Yeah, that would be, take it with a grain of salt. Most of the beings and things that have talked to me have been glad to offer a name when I asked.
Yeah, if they won't identify themselves, then who knows exactly what is going on. It makes it questionable, I think. So again, like with everything else, you have free will, you have self-determination. Just because you hear something doesn't mean you have to act on it. Just because some voice says you should do something doesn't mean that you have to do it. It's like you gotta your own authority is the important part of the equation, and always acknowledge that you have it and use it when you want to.
Yeah, if you want to get into all the Golden Dawn stuff, there's lots of ways for testing, scrying, and the spirit vision, like with various symbols and pentagrams and, like the sigils of a planet, whatever the being, if it says it's a Jupiter seal and Jupiter seal makes it shrink away, then it's obviously lying, things like that. But there's a lot of symbology you have to learn to be able to work it that way. It has to sink into your subconscious, so you have to know it really well.
Of course, it could be your own higher self or your, inner voice giving you information. And they wouldn't have a way, since it would be you, there would be no name.
Right.
Kind of thing. Joey says, yeah, in regards to seeing things that others can't, I do believe with evidence that there is something actually there, like a spirit or some sort of entity. I believe the issue is that science and engineering simply haven't created instruments to detect and recognize these things yet. I am hopeful that they will eventually. Yeah, I think that that's probably the case as well. Like I said with air, it's like, none of us really see air in particular, but we all know it exists. And
one of the big problems is they're not, in general, scientists and things are not so open to investigating the psychic things, and most of them who do genuinely investigate psychic stuff, they get a lot of hassle from their
peers.
We
need to, get rid of the stigma of asking questions and looking for information that seems out of the box of what's called normal, I think. Luna says, it's energy I was seeing, and still am. Yep, me too. Grumpy Owl says, 700 years ago you would have been burned at the stake, but since you're native, your tribe would have taken you in as their shaman, he joked. Well, actually, that's pretty accurate. Not even a joke. It's quite true, but inappropriate in the circumstances. He says, always speak aloud that we welcome the benevolent only when these things are recognized. Safety first. Well, yeah, and when you set your own boundaries for what kind of energy is allowed to enter, that's part of that. Luna says, I used to work in mental health, and I was convinced that some of the people, mostly the schizophrenics, were psychic and really experiencing what they claimed. It could be.
Yeah, I think so. I think there seems to be a lot of schizophrenics with clairvoyance, and I'm not sure which way around it is. Maybe they're clairvoyant because they have some imbalance that makes them schizophrenic, or who knows, maybe they got clairvoyant and got diagnosed as schizophrenic, but there's enough other indicators. I don't think that would happen very often just by being psychic.
Well, when you're having the hallucinations, you are experiencing them as if they are real. So what they are experiencing is real to them. Whether or not it's psychic ability is a different question as well.
Yeah.
So Eve says, Luna, I understand you. We are a very in-tune bunch. You should not ever dismiss it. Oh my God, Luna, the dots, etc. Me too. Lulu says, tiny dots? I have it before migraine. Migraine with aura. One just has to learn to tell the difference between physical and not so much. Yeah, I have had migraines as well. I get the rainbow aura with puzzle pieces. It's a very, very specific, where there's like parts of my vision will be there'll be like a thing like this, and the edges will be all glowing and rainbowy, and then the center would be perfectly clear and distinct. But then there'd be like a whole bunch of them, all these different parts. It's very disorienting. It would make me not feel good. I don't like them. Thank goodness I haven't had one of those in a long time. Eve says, yes, Lulul. Jono says, Luna also called me out on using the word muggle, but I don't know how to better draw a distinction between on the path and off the path. No harm meant. I haven't always been on the path. Well, yeah, I didn't think that you meant any harm. I just wanted to bring it up as a subject. Since we're a safe space, if someone who doesn't have psychic abilities or whatever gets on the channel, I don't want them to feel like there's something wrong with them because, they're in a different state of development. Grumpy Owl says the doctor visit was years after that teen experience. There is a science to some of these things we see. Shamans have a process to get visions, which can vary. Yep.
Vary a lot depending on the shamans and whether they're Native American or like the Peruvian shamans that really use some of the cactus and things like that to help induce those states.
I'm sure every tribe and every tradition has got slightly different methods for doing that. The whole idea, the common ground between all of them, of the shamanism, or being a medicine person or whatever, is the ability to cross into the other world, communicate directly with the spirits that are there, either the spirits of the plants for the medicine or the beings and stuff that exist there, and bring that information back. And so it's like a person of two worlds would be a good definition of what that is. And how people get there varies. And Moonradish says, thanks. Sundrop says, Siofra, do you do magic every day? How about kitchen magic? Everything in existence is magic. You don't have to do magic specifically. Being alive is magic in itself. If you're paying attention to what's going on around you, everything is magic. It's the life force. It's everything that there is.
Yeah, be aware of it.
And sure, you can do, when you're cooking, putting good energy into the food that you're making, putting energy into the food before you eat it and all that kind of stuff. That is perfectly okay. It's a way of being in the world, and of hearing the universe speaking to you through the things of the world to help you navigate where you are and where you want to go. And it's a way of paying attention. And then specific things like doing rituals, doing spell work or that kind of stuff, those are different tools that you can use in order to communicate with the universe. But it can be as simple as going outside and putting your hand on a tree and having a conversation with a tree. That is magic. It doesn't have to be like, a full-blown ritual or anything. And it's recognizing yourself as being a part of this amazing, incredible
it's like
biosphere.
An awareness, and if you're aware of it on the inside and start responding to it, the outside will start responding to you. The universe will start responding to you.
Yeah.
And interact in that
fashion. And the universe, with me and the universe at this point, the universe is pretty much in my face and direct if I need to know something, which is kind of nice. I don't wonder, it's like, is that a sign? It's like, oh yeah, that's a sign. Grumpy Owl says, laugh out loud. I know he's being accurate, but what doctor says such things? He's a Mormon, too. Well, I don't know. Maybe he was inspired. Who can tell? Eve says, Grumpy Owl, shaman things and such, I knew it. Mo LaFay says, what's your opinion on Witchfoot? I have never heard of Witchfoot.
Basically the peace sign.
The peace sign is a Witchfoot?
Yeah.
Upside down?
Read
there's more? Okay. Moonradish says, I've been reading that.
Jono says.
Mo, it's kind of cool that the witch's foot is used in the universal peace symbol. Okay. I have no opinion on it. If it means peace, I think that's awesome.
Yeah,
I've not run across that one
either. Yeah, so.
Yeah. So I don't have like a direct connection or any investigative information that would be of help.
I'm going to go get my coffee.
All right. Moonrider says, I've been reading that angels do not have free will. What are your thoughts? Well, I have no idea. I mean, they have, the angels that I've met, they have strict things that they follow. The guardian angels, for people at least, the ones that I've met directly. And the most common annoyance I have with them is that if I need a piece of information about what I should do, the most common response is, we can't tell you. You have to decide this for yourself. But I don't know. That's probably a human interpretation of things, and how accurate are we about the things that we live with every day. So I have no way of knowing the answer to that question. I know we have free will. Maybe angels do, maybe angels don't. Maybe they have a specific thing because of the kind of spirit they are that they follow. So, Luna says, I've had 3 migraines this week. Shiny kaleidoscope auras and all. But the steam dots is definitely energy. I see it in different densities and colors, etc., depending on what it comes from. All right. Yes, and I can definitely see other kinds of energy things that I know are not my migraines. The first time it happened, I was upside down in a headstand in a yoga class, and I'd never had one before. That was the first one I had, and I thought I was going blind. So I went to the doctor, and I described what was happening. He says, oh, you're having migraines, you're fine, and then he let me go. Never told me a thing about them, or what to do for them, or anything else. It's just like, you're fine. I'm like, well, that was sort of helpful on some level.
I probably didn't know much to do about him back, when we were first.
They didn't have medication for them in particular, I guess, back then. Yeah. That's probably when it was in the 70s sometime. It was before I went to the Kispiox, and I went to the Kispiox in 78, so it was probably like 77, actually, when I took that yoga class. Grumpy Al says, South American shamans use something called Nunu for visions, and something else called Sabo comes from a poisonous frog. I certainly wouldn't want to do any of those things unless I was a member of their tribe and had been raised in the environment and they knew what they were doing. That's my opinion. Moonrather says, ever use an inanimate object as a ward for protection? Well, I have inanimate objects all over the place that I use for wards.
Yeah.
I mean, they make great houses and charge them up and stick them in places. They use rocks. They use statues.
My most common are rocks, but you can use a statue like a dragon statue is a pretty good one for if you want to scare.
I made that angel brass plaque into a protection for my front door. I've got bells, which are inanimate objects hanging from my door. I've got my brooms. Those are inanimate objects that I hang over my window. I guess the answer is yes. Luna says, I can see it pretty much all of the time, even in full light, although I can ignore it when I don't need to see it. Yeah, the energy dots. Grumpy Al says, some people have used it for healing. That would be the Nunu and Sabo. Same thing, though. If I didn't know what I was doing, I would not be doing it. Eve says, that was nicely put, Siofra, about the kitchen magic and so forth. So she is right, guys. Life is magic in and of itself. Yeah.
Very true.
And it's just up to us to recognize it and to embrace it. I mean, part of the problem we have as a species is the fact that we are separated from nature. We feel like we are above nature or beyond nature, or nature is there to serve us and so forth, instead of being a part of nature. But we are a part of nature, and when we reconnect with that, that's the magic. That is the whole thing. That's the whole point. Morgan Mo LaFay says, Witchfoot is a YouTuber. Sorry, I thought you heard of her. Sorry. Oh, no. Haven't heard of her either. Or the actual Witchfoot that apparently Jono knows about. Tammy says, every time a new question pops in my mind, one of you answers it before I can even type it. Fabulous. Awesome. That's what we like. Talk about synchronicities. Eve says, Tammy, same. Wildly in tune. All right. Tammy says, yes, there seems to be a stronger link than before. We've sort of been evolving this for a while, and we're getting better at being present and letting it do what it needs to do and stuff like that. And you guys are getting better at asking good questions and generating thoughtful responses. And so it's a community effort. We're here as a resource. Jono says, do you have an electric kettle? I've heard Americans boil water on the stove. Well, I have a kettle I put water in and then put it on the stove to heat it up, but I don't have an electric kettle. At least not at the moment. We do have one of those little tea things where you pour it in the top, push a button, it heats it up, and then it, is it like 1 cup's worth? Which is pretty efficient. It doesn't take much time. It's probably more efficient, energy speaking, than boiling the water, but Tammy says shared energy. Well, yeah, we make anytime a group of people start communicating together on a regular basis, you're sort of creating pathways, I guess, of communication and energy exchange and so forth. And words are energy too.
Yeah, and
so,
those things happen on energetic levels.
Yeah, definitely. Luna says, my migraines start by part of my vision going missing, kind of like a hole in the middle of my vision before the aura starts. I'll be glad not to have another for a while. Yes. Lua says, if you dress with purpose, colors, jewelry, it becomes a spell. Well, it certainly is magic. And I wear jewelry with a purpose when I go shopping a lot. And if I forget my jewelry, I do my energy shield around me and do that, which is magic, So Moonradish says, how can one connect with a pet's consciousness?
Very carefully. I should answer.
From someone who has experience doing it, it may not necessarily be advised.
Yeah, I was just doing it. Had a cat we really liked, and I was just doing it by focusing on being the cat, feeling like the cat, trying to transfer myself into the cat and losing consciousness of my physical body and becoming aware. And when I finally did make contact with her consciousness, it was quite shocking because I have my image of what a cat is, and she had an entirely different image of what a cat is. It was just like, it was really a feeling of being in contact with something alien, and it was shocking for that reason.
But it was genuine because of it.
Yeah.
It wasn't anything that you expected. You couldn't even imagine that when you made contact with your cat that you loved and thought was the sweetest little thing, that you would suddenly feel like a machine.
She felt like she was a real predator,
machine of death.
Even though she was a sweet cat.
Yes.
But yes, and like a feeding tube with fangs and claws. It's like that was the goal, the go-to. At least at that moment, I contacted her, I guess.
Well, I think that actually, when things like that happen, and you get such an unexpected result, you can be pretty confident that it was real. That if it won't fit your expectations at all, it's probably pretty likely to be the real thing.
It seems like everything like that is some kind of a shock impact, not necessarily bad shock, but like an impact, like shock, like, oh, something happened,
So Sundrop says, yes, glamour magic. Well, yeah, how you dress and how you feel definitely would be part of that, the energy that you put out. Veronica says, bye everyone, I have to leave the live. Hope you all have a good rest of your day. And that little wiggle I did earlier was for her, since we were talking on another subject. Luna says, seriously, Jono, you just had to. He's been dying to ask about the kettle thing for weeks now.
Bye, Veronica.
Bye. Jono says, Luna, I had to. I don't know how Ian made coffee on the stove so fast. Well, it was already made after lunch. It was from our lunch coffee, and we use French press. So we boil the water, pour the coffee, and let it sit for 5 minutes.
I even already had it poured. I just didn't bring it out with me.
You
so
forgot
I just had
to
to
bring
go
it.
in and get it. Yeah.
My kettle plugs into the wall socket and has a button to turn it on. Americans might even discover this technology one day. Yeah. Well, see, the problem with that is washing the kettle afterwards because of the electrical stuff. And we've been having an infestation of ants that like to crawl into our kettle, so we have to rinse it out. Everyone's got a different way of dealing with it. Rita says, I had a clear thought of, "Aw, man, I miss my mom," come into my mind as I was playing in the floor with my puppy, and my husband was in the floor with us. I asked him, "Are you missing your mom?" I guess we'll find out in a minute. Moonradish says, I feel so connected with my cat, I'd like to know what's going on in his little mind.
That's exactly how I felt, yeah. This wasn't a kitten, this was a full-grown cat. We got her when she was full-grown, so we don't know how old she was, but...
So we're waiting for Rita to finish her thought. Are you missing your mom as she is deceased? He said, no, why? And I realized it was the puppy, and I didn't know this was possible. Yep, that would make sense. Puppies would miss their moms. So that's kind of cool. Yeah, Ian felt very connected to our cat, too. And after that, he did not want to know what was on her mind.
Then she went and died.
Ah, yes. She had to leave us. It was sad. And we lost both of them at the same time, pretty much.
Yeah.
Bugsy is still doing pretty well, though. Still don't know how long we're going to have him, or if he's just now a permanent member of our household. I guess we'll find out. Jono said, Moonradish, no you don't. Ian, please explain what a cat's mind is like again, thank you. No, I think we've covered that.
Yeah.
Lewis says, I make both tea and coffee in a coffee maker.
Yeah, this little tea thing is pretty fast. It takes maybe 20 to 30 seconds to heat up a
cup of water.
Cup of water for tea.
It's pretty efficient. Mary says, I just saw a documentary about how cats are related to and came from feline star beings from the planet Vega, so they are part alien, Ian. It's probably not a documentary. Don't know how you could actually prove that. Documentaries are supposed to have evidence, but okay. I just watched the documentary on the Dugars, which was the TLC show about the husband and wife religious couple who had 19 children. And that was intense. And
by birth, not adoption, mind.
Right. They weren't adopted. She gave birth to all 19 of them. It's on Amazon. If anyone has Amazon and is interested in seeing it, it's called Shiny Happy People.
That's what it was called, yeah.
And it's difficult to watch, I have to say, but I thought it was a good thing for me to watch it and find out more about that. But I came across a new term. They called it deconstruction, which is what we call shadow work. And apparently being in a fundamentalist religious cult, that's what the psychologists call the term of going down and looking at and evaluating all of your beliefs and so forth and your experiences and deciding which ones you want to keep. It was fascinating when I was listening to them talk about that. I thought that's what shadow work is. So it was interesting to see a new term. But yeah, that's what I was doing between yesterday and today. It's only 4 episodes long. Rita says, we had him like 1 day or 2. He was happy in general, though, because we actually had his mom's brother for him to play with. Was the only time I experienced this.
Cool when things like that happen, though.
Yeah. Mary says it was relating to why Egyptians and other ancient people worshipped cats. Sundrop says, oops, sorry if I reported someone. It was an accident. I'm sorry. Well, we didn't see it happen. Do you think, is that why Tammy's message was retracted? Eve says, who means tiger? Who, man. Didn't come along till Eve. And apparently she was formed by tiger and man. Well, okay. That sounds like another speculative idea. Again, based in English, sort of. I don't know. All right. Tammy says, how do you keep from losing that connection when something shocking happens? Sometimes you can't.
But
It's a
usu-
matter of practice.
Yeah, usually it's not bad enough to knock you out of it. Like the thing with the cat wasn't really bad enough to knock me out of it, but it was like, ooh, I need to get out of this for a minute, to let it settle in me what I just experienced.
And it's the normal, like, lizard brain reaction to something that's new and different. Um, it's difficult. You can't, like, not have that happen from time to time, no matter how long you've been at this. If, all of a sudden something just leaps out of nowhere and jumps in front of you, you're going to go, ah! That's kind of the way that works. Tammy says, or do you just have to start over? Yeah. Eve says, so the reason that Cain killed Abel is because he had that animalistic inside of him. Again, it's a theory, a myth, a story, or whatever, so not fact, as far as I'm concerned. And, it's just the way people decide to think about things. Whether Cain and Abel ever actually existed, I guess that's a different question altogether.
Yeah.
Eve says, I don't know about all that, but it's thought food. Okay.
It's true.
You can think about it and decide if you're going to continue to think about it or dismiss it. That's sort of the way our thoughts are supposed to work, I guess. That's how we choose to become who we are and define ourselves. By what we decide to focus on and think about. And then act on, I guess. It's one of those things. So I'm not sure what button you push, Sundrop, so hopefully it wasn't a major button. And
Well, see, these right over here, if you click on that, it'll say like report, and it'll go to report that person. That
okay, well, I don't do that kind of stuff, so can you unreport?
Well, it was
them?
accidental anyway.
Right. Okay. But yes. So we got 9 minutes left. What do we want to talk about towards the end? I'm trying to think. It's been going along quite nicely here.
Yeah, when I communicated with, or I should say when the tree communicated with me, I was out at a little stream and I was just trying to learn to play a little fife, actually, and just kind of tootling at the trees, and they showed me something in return. That wasn't shocking. I guess because they're less animate than an animal is.
A tree?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They can't move around. They're kind of there, other than when they get blown around.
Well, yeah, it does depend on what it is. Like when the tree reached out and hugged me to comfort me, it wasn't shocking at all. It was shocking and surprising, but not
Surprising, but yeah.
but not like make you
Yeah.
jump and run away and I can't handle this, because the feeling that the love and comfort and acceptance that the tree was giving me was just so real and there and shocked me out of the state I was in. I was extremely depressed and crying really hard and feeling kind of hopeless and why does the universe hate me kind of thing. So the universe wanted me to know it didn't hate me. It was just people. It's just the way that is. So he says, I just thought it was an intriguing concept. I learned it from Chiron. Jono says, it's interesting how Christian Hebrew mythology is so pervasive. Doesn't bother me, but for anyone who it does bother, that must suck. Well, a lot of TV shows have got it in there pretty much everywhere.
Yeah. I think the problem with me in that is that I think there's validity under the surface that is not recognized or even conceived of by most of the Christians alive today, but I believe there is still some hidden valuable stuff in the Bible and in the Kabbalah and things like that that aren't generally recognized. One of the things about the Bible is the apocalypse and the 7 seals. They relate to the 7 chakras and give it kind of a kundalini approach in that sense. And I'm not sure if I buy it, but I find it fascinating for what that's worth.
Moonradish says, I was able to gain a name for my orange calcite. Cool. Sundrop says, have you thought about doing panels, like having people join the video through Zoom or StreamYard? Not yet. Sundrop says, you can put the link in the chat and people will click and come on. Yeah, we're not as ready to do that kind of thing as yet.
Yeah, we have some stuff we need to research first.
Yeah, Rita says, have you ever played the game Hot and Cold with Spirit? Guide couldn't tell me the location of something I was looking for. It was a whole experience. Not sure why they couldn't tell me, but they did play Hot and Cold, and the thingy was found in a very few minutes. Well, that sounds awesome. What a great tactic to use. I'm glad it worked, but that hasn't happened to me. At least it hasn't come up. Usually, if I can't find something and I think they had something to do with it, I'll give them a warning. And I'll say, I'm leaving the room right now, and when I come back, it better be back where it belongs or else. And then I leave the room and come back and find it. And with Ian and I, if he can't find something, he asks me to look for it, and then he finds it. He just did that the other day again. He came out and says, can you help me find blah, 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 blah. I'm like, okay, fine, let me put my stuff away. And then he turns around and he goes like, oh, there it is. Okay, good.
Well, I honestly think it's because it takes such a long time that I get impatient and I continue searching and searching and searching while she's getting ready to like finish up her knitting or whatever, crocheting.
Whatever I'm doing.
And then
Or getting the animals off my lap. Being held down by a bunny and a cat. I have to get them off before I can stand up and do things. But yes, it's entertaining. Luna says, thank you all and blessings for the week ahead. Thank you, Luna. Appreciate you being here. Rita says, desperate times, separate measures. Wasn't them to blame this time. Ah, okay. Tammy says, maybe some of those similarities were closer in experience prior to interpretation by others. Meant desperate typo. Rita said, desperate times. Yeah, I think that's what I said. It worked. Oh, desperate measures. Okay. You have one desperate, you needed two. I got you. Desperate times, desperate measures. Oh, language. Me and my literal brain. Takes me a while to get there sometimes, people. Thank you for helping.
Well, sometimes it's useful though, because direct to the point, you can bypass some of the distracting stuff sometimes, you know.
Yeah, holographic intuition. A whole different subject. That'd be a good one to talk about, actually. We should maybe have a discussion on that. Okay, guys. So, it's been great. I'm glad to have some new people coming in and watching videos and asking questions, because it keeps us going, and we thoroughly enjoy these conversations that we have. Tammy says, enjoyed this time together. Have a fabulous week, everyone. Thank you. Rita says, it's been a great live. Z-Zun says, hey all, great to catch the live. Eve says, love you guys, love this channel, absolutely phenomenal conversations. I'm finishing up my kitchen witch magic. Okay. Ruth says, bye all. Shay says, ducking in for the last 5 minutes. Bye, Shay. Hello, Shay. John says, do you have any turquoise? I use a tiny piece to find things I've put down in a safe place. I love you all, guys. Thank you for the stream. Lua says, bye. Grumpy Owl says, have a great day, everyone. It's been a hoot. Ha ha. Eve says, blessed be. Joey says, blessed be. Rita says, bye all. Julia says, loved being here and always hope to catch the live feeds. Love and hugs to all who wish them. Ian says, thank you all for chatting with us and blessed be. So I guess that's the end of our show. And yes, we had a blast this week. And we'll talk to you all online. Oh, Mary says, finishing my tea made on the stove. Have a great night. Carolee says, night all. Bye, everybody.
Thank
Love
you
you.
all.
It's been good.